I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I was watching this movie about this woman. I just started a movie about this woman who is illiterate and she's functioning. She's a functioning illiterate person. She's aware she's illiterate. But I was thinking about like, is there some sort of skill in my life that I don't have that other people have, but I'm not aware that I don't have it, if that makes sense. Like, for example, when I was in school, I think I made it to I started to notice my vision changing around seventh grade. And then it wasn't until high school that I got glasses because, around seventh grade, I was starting to squint and stuff. But I felt like I could see things. It didn't seem to be getting in the way of my life. And then it wasn't until high school I was in chemistry class, and man, it must have been like my junior year, and I was sitting in the back of the class, as I tended to do, and the teacher was, writing a bunch of stuff on the board, and I wasn't really following along, and I'm not sure if that was because I didn't understand what she was saying or what, but she suddenly turned around and was talking to the class and just asked me a question about what she was talking about. And I was totally clueless. And I was just sort of sitting there in silence, struggling. And I'm a little emotional about it because she kind of called me out in a way that was not terribly supportive in front of my whole class. And she just went, "Well, you don't know because you can't see the board." It blew my mind because I didn't even realize that, yeah, I couldn't see the board. The squinting wasn't doing enough. So, yeah, I wasn't quite clear on what she was talking about partially because, it was very advanced chemistry, but also I was missing a lot of the nuances because I literally just couldn't see the board, especially, particularly what she was writing at the time. And it was such a shocking experience it's like suddenly realizing, oh, you're blind, like, oh, you can't see. It was so weird. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, you think you have a skill, you think you're functioning, and then suddenly you realize you're not functioning. There's something that's missing in your life. And maybe you used to have it, but it eroded away, and now you don't have it. And it's something that, it's something that most people have. It's something you had, and now you don't have it. But it's not like, I think a lot of people think, with blindness, it's suddenly you wake up and you have absolutely no sight whatsoever, or you're deaf and you literally can't hear a thing. That's not usually how deafness and blindness works. It's a more gradual thing, and you can still see some lights, or, you can still hear a hum or something. It's not the complete absence of sight or hearing. So it was like that with me, where my vision had kind of eroded to the point where I wasn't functioning, but it's eroded so slowly that I didn't even know that I wasn't functioning, and it was having an impact on me. I can't remember if she said anything else. Did she say something like you're squinting or something? I don't remember, but it didn't take much for me to realize, oh, there's a problem here. And, pretty soon after that, I got glasses. Now, if only she had been a little nicer about it, instead of just yelling at me in front of the class, like, losing my sight was some sort of failing of myself, some sort of, intentional shortcoming that I had created. Yeah. It wasn't nice. It wasn't very nice. Man, this PMS. But, yeah, I mean, it was something she needed to tell me. It was just the way that I was that I had to come to this understanding that I was losing my sight. It was very unpleasant. And I guess you could say it was a little traumatizing. I mean, obviously that was was a long time ago, and it's definitely affecting me right now. Yeah, this has been a rough PMS. I'm remembering a lot of stuff that's just happened through the years. And it comes at me so hard and so heavy, like it just happened. All kinds of random things. And it makes me think, gee, like, you think you're over something, or you think you've completely forgotten about something, and then it'll come back to you so hard and have such an emotional wallop. And it's like, man, I did not get over that at all. Now, granted, there is a PMS situation, so I am sort of chemically altered right now, but the feelings, the feelings and the memories are definitely there. I'm unearthing feelings that still exist. And it makes me think, oh my God, how much of this baggage am I carrying right now? How much of this shit is just on me, weighing on me, in me? The Scientologists talk about, what do they call it? The reactive mind? You have two minds or something. It's been a while since not that I'm a Scientologist by any means, but I was fascinated by Scientology, and so I knew kind of a lot about it. It's sort of amazing, and I didn't have to pay. But they have, there's one aspect of your consciousness that there's a name for it. I want to call it like reactive mind or something, where it's basically, they describe it as a tape recorder that records every single thing that happens to you, and the tape recorder never erases. It always stays there. I don't know if like real psychologists and doctors consider that to be a real thing. I guess so. I guess that's based on something legitimate or that's been studied. Your consciousness, your subconsciousness keeps a record of things, but it just makes me think, oh my God, like there's so much stuff on my tape recorder, and it's probably in some ways affecting my life. And I wonder, like, how do I guess technically you can't erase the tape recorder, but how can I let some of this stuff go? My God, this is like crippling. Anyway, I was, that took a turn, but, I thinking about, this woman who's trying to function through life without literacy, and I'm just starting the movie. I can't tell if there's like a bigger learning disability issue involved, because some people just don't learn, and it just kind of snowballs where they just keep going through life without learning to read. I don't know if she had some, disability or something that was keeping her from reading. I think they were sort of suggesting that. But anyway, it just makes me think like my vision, like, are there just things in my life? Are there things skills, abilities, things that I should have in my life that I don't, and I don't realize I don't have it? It's hard to know what you're missing without, seeing someone else who has it, without seeing it around. I was thinking about it reminds me of my father who was getting on in age. And so he, had this huge house, and it just became too much. And so things would fall apart in the house, and then, he wouldn't get it fixed for whatever reason. And I don't know, let's say, for example, the dishwasher stopped working, even though it didn't stop working. But for example, let's say the dishwasher stopped working, and they would just sort of work around it. He would just wash dishes by hand. And then it got to a point where you forgot that there even was a dishwasher. People are so adaptable that they just keep going. And then, the missing thing seems to be a non-factor after a certain point. Like there was a time where, I don't know, maybe it was a couple weeks or something where I didn't really talk to him and my sister. My sister was living at the house too. And, or maybe it was more than a few weeks, because I spoke to them finally, and I went to the house after a while. Maybe I'd spoken to them or whatever, and there was no indication that there was anything wrong. But when I actually went to the house after a few weeks, I realized that half the house was out of power. The power had gone out. I guess it was a blown fuse or something. It was not something completely irreparable. And, like I said, I'd spoken to them on the phone. There was nary a mention of the fact that half the house had no power. And so my sister was like, she had no power in her bedroom, and she was charging her phone in the bathroom. Like, they just adapted. They modified their life around this lack of power. And it's like, it wasn't even an issue until somebody from the outside came in and was like, oh my God, half your house is in the dark. And, it's like, it's a beautiful thing that we're so adaptable, but at the same time, it's like, what are we letting lapse? What are we ignoring? What is our mind sort of scabbed over that we're not even realizing is there anymore? And it's sort of a horrible feeling. Like, what is it that I don't have, or I'm not doing, or, what am I missing here? I don't know. I just feel like there's something missing. I must feel like there's something missing if I'm this concerned about it at this moment right now. Unless there's something obviously visibly wrong, it's hard to tell what's missing. For example, with the android, that individual that I have had sort of a relationship with in the past, not now. I was talking about him with my therapist, and she was talking about how non-committal he was in his speech. I had read her like a text message exchange that we had. And she was saying that, like, I could see how he drives you crazy. I looked at the messages, and I wasn't completely satisfied with the way he was doing things, but I didn't think there was anything egregiously wrong. And when I read it to another person, an outside party, she was like, oh my gosh, I can see how he's driving you crazy, because he would sort of give me just enough. Just give me just enough consideration, just enough niceness, just enough reciprocation. Can't even really use the word reciprocation because, I don't know, to me that suggests equal and opposite response. So it wasn't equal and opposite, but it was just enough response and attention on his end to give the impression that he was giving attention. And so I didn't realize how much of an android, it's how unresponsive he was until an outside person had to tell me. And I was talking to her about how he and a lot of the men in my life sort of remind me of, kind of one of my first loves as a child was Major Nelson from I Dream of Jeannie. I would watch reruns of I Dream of Jeannie when I was a child, and I found Major Nelson to be so attractive, so dreamy, and obviously Larry Hagman was a babe, but there was something about Major Nelson in particular, and in a lot of characters, where there's this sort of stoic male character who doesn't really respond, doesn't really reciprocate, and they have this female, paramour, or someone who wants to be their wife or girlfriend or whatever, who's chasing and just trying to get something out of, some sort of reciprocity out of them. And so that was definitely Jeannie and Major Nelson. for, and that's, sort of the premise of the show. If he had just reciprocated right away, where would be the drama? So one day during quarantine, after talking about the android with my therapist, I was like, well, let me watch Major Nelson and see what he does that sort of formulated my, the rubric, the blueprint of my love life. And so I was watching it, and it was very blah. There was nothing controversial, really. I was waiting for him to insult her, insult Jeannie, or, be mean to Jeannie. And it really wasn't, there was nothing wrong. It wasn't antagonism by any means on his part. It was a complete lack of feeling. It was a complete lack of anything. It was just blankness. Just perfectly pleasant, but nothing. No feeling. If anything, you would almost call it sociopathic, except sociopaths tend to be more selfish and more, motivated for their, satisfying their own needs or whatever. So I can't really call it sociopathic, but sociopathic in the sense of there was no feeling to the point where it was kind of inhumane. And, it's it takes me back to that feeling of, well, what am I missing? Because it's not that there was anything, not that the android is mean. It's just a complete lack of human feeling. And I guess I'm getting emotional about it because it took me so long to realize that I was trying to make a husband out of a brick wall. And I'm sad because there was so much that I deserved that I was not getting. And I didn't even realize that I wasn't getting it. So, I don't know. I mean, what does one do to make sure that they're not falling into these situations? I guess you have to tell it to other people. Show your situation to outside eyes so they can, recognize right away, oh, this is what your problem is. This is what's wrong in this situation. And, yeah, but sometimes if you don't even know there's a problem, why would you even say anything to an outside person? I mean, let's say, I did have power missing through half of my house and I've completely, like that term in the commercials, nose blind. Like, what if I don't smell that there's, a pile of shit or something after a while? Why would it even occur to me to bring it up to someone else if I don't know there's a problem? So how can you tell there's a problem? It's one thing if, there's an issue and you bring it to someone else to sort of look at and examine and give you feedback. But if you don't know there's a problem, why would you even bring it up? If I assumed that, half the house is not supposed to have power and that's just the way it is, how do you know to say something to anybody? I don't know. In conclusion, I don't know. I mean, I guess you try to share as much as you can and hopefully somebody will say something. But I don't know. Maybe some things are just gonna fly under the radar. Some things will fall through the cracks and never get called out. But, yeah, I don't know. I remember there was this opera that, I can't remember the name of it. I just remember hearing it one time on the radio, and it was about this woman who was blind, and she had no idea she was blind. And her family I think she was maybe a princess or something like that. I don't know. She was in some place of privilege, and her like family, like the king and everyone in the court or something, was like they were forbidden to mention that she was blind. And so nobody ever mentioned it. No one had any idea. I mean, she had no idea that she was blind. And she just, she was fine. She went through life being perfectly happy. And then, and and I hate to sound like ableist to say that like her missing sight was somehow something terribly wrong in her life that needed to be fixed or called out or something, because she was perfectly fine. But shit happened, shit changed when some random dude came into her life and like realized very quickly that she had no sight and was like, oh, you're blind. And she was like, I'm sorry, what? And then all this crazy shit happens afterwards, and I'm sure they fell in love or whatever. But I kind of wonder that there's, not going to be someone who comes in and is like, what? You've got X, Y, and Z, or you don't have X, Y, and Z? How are you living like this? Why didn't anyone say anything about that? And then you finally realize you're missing X, Y, Z, and then you get X, Y, and Z, and everything just, works out in the end, I guess. Not that in the opera she suddenly got her sight. I don't think that was a thing, but maybe it was. I don't know. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I didn't catch the end. Maybe she did get her sight back. I don't know. That would be crazy. I don't know. Anyway, just something to think about. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk that just kind of went all over the place and had a lot of crying. As I've mentioned, I am PMSing like a mother. I thought I was sort of done with the PMS part like 5 days ago, but apparently not.